Okay. So again, alif, ba, ta, tha, jim, ha, kha, dal, dhal, ra, za, sin, sheen, sod, dod. Okay, so we said with the sin and the sod, it's the tip of the tongue touching the tips of your lower teeth. What did we say about the dod? How would you pronounce the dod? Is it the tip of the tongue, the side of the tongue, the middle of the tongue, or the back of the tongue that we're using with the dod? Yeah, the side, thank you. Okay, so the side of the tongue should be touching which teeth? The molars, thank you. Okay, so the side of the tongue should be touching the molars, and we said that we would naturally have a slight puffy, well, with a slight air in your cheeks because of that heavy letter and how we're pronouncing it and how we're essentially trapping the air in our mouth between in the cheeks, if that makes sense. So if we were going to pronounce it, we would pronounce it as da, da, da. Okay, so I would say as if I was putting a sukoon on it, I would pronounce it like if I was doing it as this, I would say al. If I was pronouncing it with a fatha, I would say it as, well, leave that one out. I would read it as da, da. And if it had a dhamma on it, I would read it as do, do. And if I was pronouncing it with a kasra, I would pronounce it as di, di. Okay, so it's this idea that as in terms of we are trapping our air in there, making it as heavy as we can, and it has that rounded mouth, but in exaggerated form. Okay, what can we remember about the ha? Where is the ha pronounced from? Which part of the throat? The middle. Okay, so the ha is pronounced from the middle of the throat, and there should be lots of air that is released for it. The ha, which part of the throat is it released from? The top. Okay, so the ha is pronounced from the top of the throat, and it is nice and scratchy. Okay, and then we had the letter tha. What do I need to remember about the letter tha? Stick my tongue out, and also for the dhal, I need to stick my tongue out. Okay, so we said there's two letters that we would pronounce while we are sticking our tongue out. Okay, and the rest of them are nice and easy to pronounce. We've just got to remember the sound. Okay, so the next letters are, so sin, sheen, sad, dod, and then we have ta, va, ain, and the ghain. Okay, so ta. If you notice when I'm pronouncing it, ta, ta, what can you see in my about my face? That makes sense. Ta, ta. Anyone notice anything? Ta, tu. Yeah, so it's like I've got like an overly mouth, and there's a slight puff in my cheeks. Okay, if you notice, so it's ta, ta, ta. Okay, so the idea is again that with heavy letters, that sometimes it's a natural thing. So ta is pretty much the same as da, but it's a heavier version of it. Okay, so it's da, you would pronounce like a smile, da, da. And with these letters, if we're talking about it being specific, the tip of the tongue should be touching the gums of the upper front teeth. Okay, so I'll repeat that again. The tip of the tongue for da and ta is the tip of the tongue touching the gums of the upper front teeth. Again, tip of the tongue touching the gums of the upper front teeth. It's the same for the dal also. So the da, and ta are all pronounced by the tip of the tongue touching the gums of the upper front teeth. Okay, and then we have the letter va, va. So again, you'll notice that there's a slight puff in my cheeks when I say va, va. Okay, and what am I doing if you notice?
tongue is slightly coming out.
Yeah, okay. So the tongue is slightly sticking out. So we've got tha, dhal, and dha. So 3 letters now where you would pronounce by sticking your tongue out. Okay, so we've got 1, 2 with the dhal, and 3 with the dha. Okay, so tha with a smile, the, this one, the was just a normal face, it's slightly a bit more rounded, and then the va is the heavier version. Okay, so tha, the, va. All 3 letters pronounced with sticking our tongue out. And there's only 3 letters in the Arabic language where you would stick your tongue out. Okay, so you've got that now, you've studied it. You can put that down. There's 3 letters. Whenever I see them, I need to stick my tongue out. Okay, and then we have the letter Ain. Okay, so this is the one that most people feel is the hardest. But to be honest, I think it's overly so overly worried about, in the sense that if you, the only thing that I would say that is in terms of don't overly emphasize it where it's causing a stop. So the idea about the Ain is that, first of all, which part of the throat do you think it's pronounced from? The middle.
Back of the throat.
Okay, yeah. So from the middle of the throat. So just pop it as a note because it's being recorded. So it'll just as in terms of for anyone that's listening afterwards. So the ain is actually pronounced from the middle of the throat. Okay, so a is pronounced from the middle of the throat, the same as the ha. So there are 2 letters that are pronounced from the middle of the throat. So ha and ain. So when we're pronouncing it, we're saying ah, ah, ah. Okay, and so it should slightly feel. I normally describe it when I'm explaining as in terms of how you should pronounce it, that it's kind of like someone semi strangling you, or it's in the sense that you're feeling a lot of pain, and so you would say ah, but with a little bit more emphasis, if that makes sense. But you should be able to let it flow. Okay, so for example, I would be able to say ah, ah. It shouldn't be like ah, where it's stuck, because that means it's too lower down. Okay, so it should, you know, if you're feeling that you can't let it breathe out and let it the sound come out, then it's too lower down. So when you're practicing it, you should be practicing it as ah, ah, ah. Okay, so just lifting it for you. So that's the ain from the middle of the throat. So again, you're just practicing it, trying to get that ah sound without causing it to stop. So again, I'll repeat that if you say it as ah, ah, I can't get any more sound out. So that means it's too low. You should lift it up and let it as if you're singing, or you're saying it in a way that there's someone across the room and they need to be able to hear that ah. Okay, so you would say it as ah, ah. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. The ghain. So the ghain, where do you think it's pronounced from? Which part of the throat? Is it the top, middle, or bottom? The top, yeah. So the ghain was the same as the ha. It's pronounced from the top of the throat. Okay, so if you notice that there's a slight gargle, similar to how the scratchiness of the ha is, so that gargle is because you're doing it from right from the top of the throat, and so you should be pronouncing it as gha, gha. So when we're saying this letter, the name of the letter is ghain, ghain. Okay, and you should be able to hear that slight gargle sound that's coming from me. Okay, so again, gha, gha, ghou, ghou, ri, ri. Okay, so I'll just repeat these letters again. So we've got ta, ta, va, va, ain, ain, ghain, ghain. And if we were to say just the sounds and not the names of the letters, we would say that as ta. Okay, so each letter I'm going to use with a fatha, then I'm going to use with a kasra, then I'm going to use with a dhamma. Okay, so here I would say it as ta, ta, ti, tu, ta, ti, tu, ta, ti, tu. Okay, the same with the va now. So remember sticking your tongue out, trying to make it as heavy as possible. Va, va, vi, vu, va, vi, vu. Okay, and then the same was the ain, a, 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 I, o, a, I, o. And then you got the ghain. So it would be gha, ghi, ghu. Again, gha, ghi, ghu. Okay, so each time it has that gargle sound on it. Okay, so we'll start from the start now. We've got alif, ba, da, tha, jim, ha, kha, dal, ذال, را, za, sin, shin, صاد, ضاد, طاء, ظاء, عين, غين. Okay, and we will leave it as that. Please differentiate between the ha and the ghain. It's coming from both from the top of the throat. Okay, the ha is more of a heavier H. Okay, and the ghain is a heavy G. Okay, so sometimes, you know, with the recording, it might sound very similar, but the ha is very different to the gha. So when I'm saying gha, I'm literally trying to get that G sound. Okay, if that makes sense. So the ha is a heavier version of a ha, and the ghain is a heavier version of an English G. Okay, with a more of a gargle sound. Hopefully that makes sense. Again, just let me know and I'll try and repeat it in a different way tomorrow. Okay, so one more time and then we'll move on to the rule. So alif, ba, da, tha, jim, ha, kha, dal, dhal, ra, za, sin, shin, صاد, ضاد, طاء, ظاء, عين, غين. Okay? Okay, let's move on. Okay, so I already kind of started with a brief summary of what the rule is that we're going to be covering today. Can anyone tell me what it relates to? Just what it relates to. Don't write the whole rule down if you know it. Yeah. Okay, so the pronunciation of the word Allah, or the name of Allah. Okay, so this rule is normally known as a rule of the name of Allah. If that makes sense. So Allah is what you're looking for when you're reading the Quran. So whenever you see the word in the Quran, Allah, you know that there's a rule that applies in relation to this lam here. Okay, so this lam here, it can either be pronounced as heavy or it can be pronounced as light. So I either pronounce it as la, heavy, la, or I would pronounce it as la, nice and light. Okay, and it all is in accordance to what comes before. So just generally, because I didn't cover it in the first session, and I probably should have, that as in, because different people have learned Arabic, or they've learned Quran or Tajweed in a different way. So as in terms of when I'm referring to the voweling, I'm referring to it as fata, which is the line that comes above a letter. So that's known as a fata. Okay, so I'll just write the transliteration, because I'll be using this on a regular, and I should have really appreciated that not everyone's familiar with them. Okay, so that's the fata, the line at the top. Okay, and then we have the line at the bottom, which is known as a kasra. Okay, so we've got fata, the line at the top, kasra, the line at the bottom, and then we have Dhamma, which is that circly version at the top of a letter. Okay, and that basically in Arabic, they are the vowelings. Okay, so that's the movement. They're known in Arabic as haraka. Okay, so haraka basically means movement. So it's telling you how to move those letters. Okay, so with the fatha, you would do an a sound. With the kasra, you would do an e sound. And with the dhamma, you would do an u sound. Flying, fatha, kicking, kasra. Oh, well done, Haifa. What about the dhamma? Is there anything that we can remember that by? Hopefully she'll tell us something. Okay, so find your own ways to remember it. Okay, with the fatha, it's an a sound. With the kasra, it's an e sound. And with the dhamma, it's a u sound. So the idea behind the rule relating to the name of Allah is that you look at the letter before. If the letter before has a fatha or a dhamma, we pronounce it heavy. We pronounce the lam in the name of Allah heavy. If the letter before has a kasra, we pronounce the lam in the name of Allah lightly. Okay, so I'll just repeat that again with an example, the same example that we used yesterday. So if the letter before the name of Allah has a fatha or a dhamma, we pronounce the lam in the name of Allah heavy. If the letter before has a kasra, we pronounce the lam in the name of Allah lightly. Okay, so let's use the examples. So if it's got a fatha on it, I would pronounce this as wallah, wallaha. Okay, so wallah. And then if it has a dhamma, let's change that into a dhamma, I would pronounce it again heavy. So it's wallah, wallah. Okay, and if it has a kasra, or if it has a kasra, I would pronounce the lam in the name of Allah lightly. So I would say it as willah, willah. Okay, and you can see that there's a slight smile when I'm pronouncing the lam in its light form, but when I'm saying it in its heavy form, it's more of a rounded face. Okay, so it's la in comparison to la. Okay, and again, la in comparison to la. Okay, so the rule is that whenever you see a fatha or a dhamma that comes before the name of Allah, you would pronounce it, meaning the lam in the name of Allah, heavy. If there is a kasra before the name of Allah, you would pronounce the lam in the name of Allah lightly. Okay, and that is your rule. Now it's impossible for there to be a fatadain, so the double system. You know, when you see it like this, you can't have that before the name of Allah. Okay, it just doesn't exist. You can't have a dhammatain, you can't have a kasratain. Impossible. So your only options are before the name of Allah, a fatha, a kasra, or a dhamma. Okay, so again, whenever you see a fatha or a dhamma before the name of Allah, you pronounce the lam in the name of Allah heavy. Whenever you see a kasra before the name of Allah, you pronounce the lam in the name of Allah light. Okay, so that is your rule in its official term for today. The rules that we've covered previously are two. So we've covered the rule of noon mushadda and mim mushadda. Okay, so the rule is that whenever you see a noon or a mim with a shadda on it, we pronounce it with gunna. Thank you. Okay, so whenever you see a noon with a shadda on it, a mim with a shadda on it, you pronounce it with gunna. What does gunna mean? It's the sound that comes from above the nose. Okay, so I would pronounce this as anna, amma. The second rule was qalqala. What does qalqala mean? Echo or bounce. How many letters of qalqala are there? There's 5. Yeah, well done. So what are those 5 letters? Okay, so qalqala, we said there's 5 letters and they are qaf, ta, ba, jim, dal. Okay, so qaf, ta, ba, jim, dal. Whenever these 5 letters have a sukoon on them, you would pronounce it with a bounce. Okay, so qaf, ta, ba, jim, dal, and the phrase being kutubu jaddin, kutubu jaddin. Okay, so qaf, ta, ba, jim, dal, whenever you see it with a sukoon on it, you would pronounce it with a bounce. So I would say it as aqa, ata, aba, aja, ada. Okay, and that is your rule for today. We don't actually have that much time, but what I'm going to hopefully just do as a quick thing, if we're able to, if we can recite one surah together. Okay, let's do this one because it has the rule of the name of Allah in it, and we are paying attention to whether we're pronouncing it clearly or whether we're pronouncing it lightly. Are you still able to see it? No, I thought so because I can't. Oh dear. Okay, I don't think we can do that one. It's just gone. So I want to just read one surah if we can. And then hopefully we'll go through that one tomorrow. Ideally, I did want that one because it has the name of Allah in it. We want to recite one surah. So just follow after me. Bismillah, Rahman, Rahim. Qul a'udhu bi rabbin nas, malikin nas, ilahin nas, min sharril waswasil khannas, alladhi yuwaswisu fi sudurin nas, minal jinnati wan nas. Okay, so you can really see the noon and the mim mushadda in this. Okay, and while we can, if we're able to, I just want to also go through one more. If we're able to. Okay, let's read this one together also. Bismillah, Rahman, Rahim. Qul a'udhu, was it sticking out of your tongue? Qul a'udhu bi rabbil falaq. That qalqala at the end. Bi rabbil falaq. Min sharri ma khalaq. Wa min sharri ghasiqin idha waqaba. Remember to stick out the tongue for the idha. Wa min sharri ghasiqin idha waqaba. وَمِن شَرِّ النَّفَّاثَاتِ فِي الْعُقَدِ وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدَ. Okay. And the other one's gone missing, so I can't go through Qul Huwallahu Ahad, but we'll go through it tomorrow, inshallah.